And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Bench with Bubba, episode 82. Tonight, continue on our fantasy baseball talk, and I'll be joined by a member of FanTrax, FanTrax HQ, member of FantasyPros.com. Find him on Twitter at EricCross04. Eric, how we doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for joining me. I've been looking forward to this. You are a guy that I've been following from kind of a distance and got to know you recently, and you're just a busy guy covering all kinds of things, man. And I respect the heck out of the way you guys grind these days. So I was looking forward to chatting a little baseball with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a long few months here, so it's kind of nice to start getting settled down into the kind of a routine here during the season. But it's been fun. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I love this time of the year.
Well, just real quick, it is a hectic time of the year, and for some reason, if you're listening to this podcast, you don't know what he's referring to. It's draft season. So overall, I know you got one more coming up tonight. How's kind of draft season gone for you in a roundabout way?
Pretty good. I've been really approaching, trying to keep as much balance as possible in my drafts this year. I'm the type of guy I hate trying to chase a certain category late in drafts, whether it's speed, power, pitching, whatever. So I've been trying to stick with that balance for the most part, and outside of the TGFBI, I think I've done that pretty well, but that was more about draft slot than anything else, getting the first slot in the 15-team draft, which I hated. But yeah, it's been pretty fun.
Yeah, it's nice you get Mike Trout, but then you sit there and wait and watch all this other talent just disappear in front of you.
And it makes it more agonizing when it's a slow draft, so you might have to wait like 2 days and see all these players go.
I had the second pick, so I can relate. It was some very long time stuff. But let's get into it. There's been a lot of news since I last recorded, because the last recording I had was a DFS preview, so we didn't really cover the season-long aspects of things. So we'll kick it off. Since then, Alex Cobb signed with the Orioles, got paid not nearly as much as he thought he was going to, but we're here about the fantasy relevance of things, going to a ballpark that is very, very lively in the summertime. What are your thoughts on Alex Cobb going to Baltimore and his fantasy impact this year?
Don't like it. Don't like it one bit. First off, I thought it was very peculiar. I think what he said was it 4 years, 56, 57 million. Yeah. I think I like Lance Lynn signed for 1 year, 8 million. I thought that was very peculiar. But I do not like him in Baltimore at all. That's kind of where Baltimore, for whatever reason, the ballpark has a lot to do with it, but they just can't seem to either develop or get good pitching in there. They got Ubaldo Jimenez after his huge breakout first half, and he basically died in the second half. This is just where pitchers go to die, especially a guy like Cobb. He relies more on defense than anything else. He's not a big strikeout guy. Career he's running 7.3 Ks per 9, so he's not a guy that stands out right first off in that category. So he needs his defense to kind of help him out, and maybe the ballpark give him a little bit of a boost. And Baltimore doesn't give many people much of a boost, so this is not a great landing spot. And it's good that he signed at least, because it was looking like he wasn't gonna have a job going into the season. So I guess it's good in that aspect that at least he signed. But it's not a great landing spot for Cobb. I don't like him at all.
Yeah, I had the idea that Cobb could be good if he landed somewhere, heck, in Minnesota where Lance Lynn landed, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least the ballpark's not going to kill him, because, like you said, he's a very big he's more of a pitch to contact guy. He's not your big strikeout guy. Does give up a handful of fly balls, and we know how that ball goes out of there. And you mentioned it's really weird for Baltimore. This offseason, they bring Chris Tillman back. They go and sign Andrew Cashner to a ridiculously large deal for Andrew Cashner style. So if you're a Baltimore Oriole fan out there, I know Walter McMichael is and some other guys. I'm sorry. I get it. I'm a Giants fan. It's already after a horrible year. So it's an odd spot for Cobb, like you said. So we'll see how that goes. Let's talk Minnesota Twins. You got Jorge Polanco coming off an amazing second half of the season. People were looking forward to what a full season of maybe that Jorge Polanco looks like. And now we find out he's busted for steroids. He's going to be out 80 games, half the season. Minnesota looks like they're going to piece it together. Eric Ibar was an option. He's gone. Right now you got Eduardo Escobar moving over to shortstop. They might try to fill it in with some other spots. What's your outlook on maybe Eduardo Escobar and whoever's filling in at short? And B, what's your game plan for Polanco as he comes back mid-season?
First off, Eduardo Escobar, I don't have much high hopes for him. He's never really shown much of anything to me throughout his career. He's only a 253 hitter. Um, you know, so he did have 21 home runs last year, but that was by far his career best. Doesn't have much of any speed to speak of whatsoever. Only 12 career steals. So this is not a great situation. I wouldn't even. I'm not even thinking about looking at him. And I have a few leagues where I am looking for a shortstop. Recent dynasty draft I just completed with Keith Farnsworth put on, where I'm really hurting at that position. I think I'm starting Jose Peraza, so we'll miss out on one of my guys. But it's not a good situation, and I wasn't even really a big Polanco guy, but I thought he'd be a decent middle infielder, and utility type to fill in, a little bit of power, a little bit of speed, decent enough average that won't kill you. One thing I'm interested to see though, maybe he's not ready right now, but maybe in a couple months, depending on how he starts out. I believe he's starting out AAA is Nick Gordon. He's top 100 prospect for them. He's got not a great offensive profile, but kind of somewhat similar to Polanco. It's a little less power, a little more speed, but I wonder if he might factor in at some point if he gets off to a hot start, because he's definitely got more of a offensive profile than Eduardo Escobar does. So I'd be interested to see if he gets the call at some point in May or June, fills in for 30, 40 games until Polanco comes back there.
Nick Gordon's a good call. He was one of their big prospects at one time, and then he kind of dwindled off for a little bit. But this spring, they really liked what they saw. He hit 391 in 23 at-bats. Doesn't have a ton of power, like you said, but he can definitely get on base and he can run. He's been a 20-plus steal guy in the minors, so there's a lot to like there with him. So that's a good call that could definitely fill in and maybe keep the role, because Polanco wasn't much of anything before he broke out last year. I still think he can be good, but who's to say Gordon can't take the job?
Exactly.
Let's move on to LA. This begins a slew of just ridiculous injuries that have taken place in the last week. Just murderer's row. We'll start with Justin Turner. Gets hit on the hand. He's going to be out for quite some time. I believe he's not going to have surgery, which is good. So now they're saying like 4 to 6 weeks instead of the 8+ week timetable. But any guy that gets hit in the wrist or some hand injury, you got to be concerned about power. You got to be concerned about a lot of those quick reflexes there. He's already a guy that's got injury problems. What's your thoughts on Justin Turner and the Dodgers' third base problem?
Yeah, no, like you said, that when you have those hand injuries, power can be a question mark coming back, and especially for a guy that he's not a big power guy to begin with. He had 27, 2016, 21 last year, and only 457 at bats. So he's got that 25 to 30 home run pop, but he's never had a 30 home run season. I know a lot of that was he never really had a full-time gig until the last couple of years with the Dodgers. But if he's to come back and not have as much power as he has shown the last couple of seasons, you're basically counting on him to hit over 300 again to provide you a lot of value, because he doesn't have much speed. Gives you a handful of steals, but he's never had more than 80 RBIs, never had 80 runs, never had 100 RBI season. He's really been, the high average and, that 25 home run pop is what's gotten him by as being a, top 100 fantasy commodity. And he comes back and he's only, gets 400 at bats and hits you 12 to 15 home runs. It's, for a guy that's been taken, well inside the top 100 in a lot of drafts I've seen here. It's not really ideal, and they don't have any good. He's getting that. He's not going to lose that job at all. He's a very good hitter. He falls into one of those kind of better in real life than fantasy for me, which is not. He's a great guy. I'd love to have him on. I'm a Red Sox fan. I'd love to have him on my team. He's one of those guys you love to have, just a nice professional hitter, but doesn't put you over the top in fantasy. So if he comes back and loses some of that power, I question how much value he's really going to have for the rest of the season unless he's hitting 320 again.
Yeah, and you said it best. When this injury happened, I pulled up like his FanTrax and Baseball Reference. I started going through his numbers that you were reading off, and I started thinking, okay, why are we always so quick to think he's one of the top 5 third basemen in fantasy? Because he really doesn't light the world on fire. Like you said, you're taking him top 100, and he is a good ball player. But I think it's more real life, as you stated. He's kind of like that Tony Romo of fantasy baseball. We'd rather It's just he's different, two different things. So, yeah, he'll be back in a month or two. What we need to look at now is right now you got like Logan Forsythe projected to play third, maybe Austin Barnes or Kiki Hernandez or Chris Taylor playing second. There's a whole slew of options. Chase Utley becomes a little more relevant. Do any of these names, do you feel like you need to pick some of them up if they're on your waiver wire? Chris Taylor shouldn't be. Austin Barnes shouldn't be. But say like a Forsythe or a Chase Utley, are these guys that get your attention at all, or are you just going to sit back and watch?
No, I'm going to sit back and watch just, at least for the start of the season. None of these guys are guys I'm rushing out there to sign, even unless you're in a super deep league. But, one guy, I'd like to say Chase Utley just because he's been there before, but this guy, he's pushing 40 now. He's a shell of himself. Doesn't have nearly the skills that he has, but maybe he can kind of revive his career just a tad, kind of like Jose Reyes has a little bit in New York. But none of these guys are guys I'm looking to go there and add right now. But if they get off to a hot start, Forsythe gets off to a hot start, or Utley, maybe give them a flyer and ride it out while they're hot, type of thing. But not a lot of intrigue here for me.
All right. I'm going to combine these two because they're both on the Giants. You got Mad Bum, gets hit in a Whit Merrifield line drive up the middle, broken pinky. He's already had surgery and pins put in it. It's like the top knuckle, though, so it's really not the whole pinky. It's really weird. They make it sound like it's not bad, but to me, anything on a pitching hand can't be good.
Right.
He's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. He's going to push it back sooner, but we'll see how that goes. Then you got Jeff Samardzija. They thought it was a shoulder problem. Thank goodness it's just a pectoral strain. So everything in the wing is fine. He's going to be out 3 to 4 weeks. So basically 2 starters out for a month, 1 out for 2 months. Got Ty Block starting opening day for the Giants. Derek Holland has made the roster now. What are your thoughts on those 2 guys as they come back with Samardzija and Bumgarner, and any desire to maybe Beatty or Holland or Block in maybe deep leagues?
Yeah, start with Bumgarner, I guess here. He's been a guy I've loved. Bumgarner, he's never really been quite on the same level as like a Scherzer or a Kershaw. He's always right behind there, kind of in that second tier starter. Still, fantasy ace type guy, and he's just so freaking consistent. Before last season, he had 6 years straight of 200 plus innings, and he's never had an ERA higher than 3.37. That's just remarkable. That doesn't really. Never had the huge K numbers, but he's always right around a K per inning. So, guy, I've always loved having. I've always targeted him for most of his career. Always been a big Mad Bum guy. Samardzija, and not huge on Samardzija. His ERA fluctuates too much for my liking. Good strikeout guy, but he definitely made the right decision going to play baseball. That's for sure. He's been a pretty solid pitcher in his career, but. He is a guy that I liked as a kind of a mid-rotation fantasy starter, a guy you grab as like your 3rd or 4th guy, depending on how you go about it. But Ty Block starting opening day, God, that doesn't.
It's depressing. I'm a Giants fan. It's horrifying. Block
I know it's
Kershaw. That's all you need to see.
But this would be one of those games where Kershaw is kind of. I've seen this before where he's like facing the guy of Ty Block-esque type starter, and Kershaw just goes into a shell for some reason. I won't be surprised if Giants pull this out opening day, but it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence either. Ty Block's another guy. I want to like him. He's had decent ratios for the most part. He's shown a little bit, but he's just another guy that doesn't have that high of a K rate. Pulling up his numbers massive right now.
Contact. I think he had the lowest or like the 3rd lowest K per night in all baseball last year.
No, geez, yeah, I knew it was low. I'm looking at it now. Yeah, last year 4.0 K per night. Yeah, so he's got Alex Cobb to the extreme here. Yeah. So I'm not really looking at him from like I said. I don't like low strikeout guys, unless they're guaranteed to get me like a good ratios, like. Guys like Ivan Novo, and he had a couple of good years a couple of years ago, and Cobb before his injury. Guys like that, I'll maybe target in the late rounds to help me out in ratios. But last year, blocked 4.78 ERA, 1.36 WHIP. Not really that great, but hopefully you get some get these guys back. Luckily, you get Samardzija back mid to late April. So
yeah.
So And what was the time frame on Bumgarner? Was it?
They're saying 6 to 8 weeks, but
Yeah.
Bumgarner, he's a big dude that's very stubborn, and he's come back on the early end of every injury he's ever had.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he made it back early on this one too. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see. One more question I have, because this came out before I started my last show, and we don't have to go super deep in it. This could be literally a yes or no answer. They're already saying Mark Melanson's got arm issues. He hasn't thrown since Friday. He's going to throw on the side tomorrow and maybe Thursday to see if he can pitch Thursday night, or they might put him on the DL, which means the good old Sam Dyson likely steps in as closer. Either him or Hunter Strickland. I doubt Tony Watson closes, but he could. Do you have any desire for those types? Because Sam Dyson filled in actually pretty decent last year, but by no means is that comfortable.
No, it's not. He's a guy where saves always have value to a degree. And a lot of people are chasing saves already. Depending on how your draft falls, you always get the couple guys that stock up early on saves, and you're left with guys of Melancon might be your best closer. So Dyson is a guy. If he is the definite fill-in, if Melancon's forcing his time, I do have a little bit of interest in him. Not a whole lot. It's like he's not a big K guy for a closer. 7.1 Ks per 9 in his career, but he's shown he had a couple pretty good years in Texas. He saved 38 games back in 2016, 2.43 ERA. So he's shown he's done it before, which goes a long way, at least in my book. So if I was hurting for saves and wanted to just kind of get a good fit, maybe if I'm a Melancon owner, Dyson would be a guy I'd look at. I think he is going to be the one that does do that. Maybe not going to be the everyday closer every time they have a save off, but you figure Strickland might fill in a little bit there, like you said. But just that experience will kind of. I'll look at him if I need a closer for sure.
Yeah, no, like you said, he had a good run there in Texas. He had a great World Baseball Classic. Then he kind of just fell off, and then they let him go, and he came to San Francisco and actually pitched well. It's kind of changed the scenery. So the talent's there. It's not comfortable. Let's talk about Miguel Sano. You can like him, you can hate him. He did some horrible things, but according to the powers to be, they can't get enough evidence, so he's not getting suspended. And what we're here to talk about is fantasy baseball relevance, not the law. So Miguel Sano is playing all year, and that's pretty darn powerful. He's pretty much drafted everywhere you go. But what do you kind of just roughly expecting from Miguel Sano this year? He came in looking like the Pillsbury Doughboy. So he's like the worst shape of your life. What do we think of Miguel Sano? He had a good spring.
Yeah, he has. I've been big on him for most of his career, but oddly enough, this year I think I'm starting to kind of get off the Sano bandwagon a little bit here. He's got the power. That's for sure. He's got 71 career home runs and 1,140 at bats. You kind of equate that out. That's a 40 home run pace. If he's able to play every day this year, I can see him having a kind of a Judge type breakout. He has that potential, but even without this suspension looming over him anymore, he still struggled to stay on the field. He's yet to eclipse 500 at bats in his career. I know he's only had 2.5 seasons, but he still had other injury concerns. His K rate is ridiculous. I think it's right around 36% the last 2 years. So, and he's really struggled to keep a high average, even though 264 last year was okay. But that came with a 375 batting average on balls in play. And if he had, he was right below being able to qualify for all the batting averages and batting titles and all that. But if he had, that would have been the second highest in baseball behind obviously Garcia. So I don't expect the average to be above 250. And the injury concerns, I'm kind of staying away from him. I still like him. I'm always intrigued by power. That's never going to change. But yeah, I'm kind of getting off the Sano bandwagon this year, oddly enough.
Yeah, I was all aboard it last year, and I don't know if it was the suspension that was worrying me or kind of the second half swoon last year. I don't know what it was, but I don't think I have him anywhere this year. And that's
I got him one league early before the whole potential suspension came out. This got back in, it might have been the mock draft I did back in like December or something before, but yeah, I've been staying away from him after that just because mostly the suspension. But even now, he goes way higher than I would like him to go. But
yeah. There's so many other pieces there in the draft at that point that I'd rather go on. I think third base is pretty deep this year. I'll wait for Matt Chapman and go that direction if I have to.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk Steven Souza Jr. The Rays obviously traded him to the DBacks this year. He had a okay spring, but not great. Only hit 222, 2 homers, 7 ribbies, no stolen bases. That might just be a spring thing. Who knows? But, coming off a 30-homer year, steals bags, not the best average guy in the world, but, D-backs are looking for some big things out of him. He's going to be out a couple weeks. That's the doctoral definition they've given us, a couple weeks. He's going to start the year on the DL with a pectoral strain, kind of similar to what Samardzija has, and he's going to be out 3 to 4 weeks. So Souza, let's say he's out a month. I know you're in a bunch of these bigger leagues, and one of the hottest commodities on the waiver wire was one Gerard Dyson. What are you seeing with Souza going forward, and are you thinking replacements with him?
I am, and I wasn't big on Souza to begin with. I kind of thought he played a little over his head last year. He had the 8th highest home run to fly ball ratio in baseball. He's right behind guys like Judge, Stanton, Gallo, Chris Davis, Chris with a K, and right in front of guys like Gary Sanchez, Cody Bellinger, and then Mike Trout, those sorts. So I think he did play a little bit over his head last year. And going to Arizona, Arizona's been a notoriously a hitter's park, but that humidor, I've been reading more and more into the humidor, especially after Coors Field put theirs in back in, I believe it was like 2001, 2002, right near the end of the steroid era, and what that did to power numbers and his overall runs in general, kind of offensive production in general. I'm not really a fan. He was really Souza only became fantasy relevant. He's been a guy you'd fill in the waiver wire every now and then, but really a guy that you have for the entire season, that didn't start till last year when he had 30 home runs, 16 steals. But the average is always going to be bad. He doesn't make enough contact to have an average that's going to help you out any. So he's always going to be in that 240 to 250 range, I think. And you get this injury starting out here, add in the likely home run factors of the humidor. I'm not really a fan. I think he'll get his job back. I'm not worried about that. He'll get the playing time, but at least to start. But if he goes on a long, prolonged slump, which is with his swing and miss tendencies, is definitely a possibility. They got a lot of the guys right there that can step in that outfield. So he's on my do not draft list, my unofficial one that I have in my head here. But
we all have one of those.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm staying away from him this year. I don't like him.
All right, no problem there. Let's go AJ Puk, top pitching prospect of the Oakland A's. Was lights out last year in the minors. I got lucky enough to see him when he was in single A. He went to double A and was filthy still. He started spring great, started losing velocity. They got concerned. Then they say, he's got forearm tightness. That anybody that's watched baseball long enough knows that's, the nice way of saying something's wrong with his elbow.
Yes.
And literally I was kind of befuddled because I do a handful of other podcasts and I kept looking and there's no news. Like radio silence on the AJ Puk thing. And then this afternoon, John Heyman comes out and says, okay, there's some structural damage, like ligament damage. He's going to have a second opinion. And literally I went to MLB Trade Rumors to look up the Steven Souza stuff. And the top headline is AJ Puk is recommended for Tommy John surgery. So I have we're going to talk about your top 300 Dynasty rankings later. What's your thoughts on AJ Puk? Because I think everybody was really high on his ability. He was going to make an impact at some time this year. Obviously not happening now. You had him at 107 on your list, and we'll get deeper into your list later. But, man, this has to take a hit.
Oh, for sure. I've been big on Bunny. I watched a lot of him even back in his collegiate days when he was at the University of Florida. He's been a guy that's intrigued me for a while. And how can he not? He's a 6'7" lefty that throws mid to upper 90s. Right off the bat, that's intriguing.
It's like a big unit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he kind of reminds me of going back a little bit, kind of a young Andrew Miller. Yeah. He's kind of got that same build, big, tall, lanky lefty. Throws hard. A little bit, control issues that's kind of held him back a little bit. But yeah, I've been seeing all these updates too. I hate it. He's one of my favorite pitching prospects in the minors. A guy that I think has legit ace upside, both as a real life ace and a fantasy ace. I think he's that good, especially if he keeps kept working on his control like he has. He's got that mid upper 90s heater, wipeout, filthy slider. That thing tie even the best hitters up. So yeah, you heard that forearm tightness. That's always a
code.
And then right here in Boston too, Drew Pomeranz has been having that off and on ever since we got him from the Padres. But that a lot of times is, especially lately, kind of almost a precursor to Tommy John. It's nice that guys come back better now from Tommy John than they did 5-10 years ago. Some even come back better, but it just sucks. No other way to put it. It just sucks, especially a guy I like this much that has this ace upside. Well, it's a bummer. I thought next few years we'd be seeing him and one of his organizational teammates, Jesus Luzardo, who I also am really high on. Be a dominant 1-2 force in this rotation, and that's gonna be put on hold for a little bit.
Yeah, it was almost like the A's were starting to put back like a Hudson Mulder type thing, and with Zito and company, they were building something really nice. They still are, but it's on hold. And it just sucks though, because like we had Forrest Whitley get suspended, and at least he'll come back healthy. Then you have Brent Honeywell get a Tommy John. You got Jose De Leon, Tommy John, and now AJ Puckett's like. I made it as a joke a couple of weeks ago on the podcast. Said, "What's next, Michael Kopech? Like, just are you going to take all of our toys from us? Everything we enjoy? It's crazy."
I know that this is why we can't have nice things. Like put Kopech in a bubble. I've invested heavily on him over the last couple of years. So God, if he went down, I'd be SOL on several leagues. Yeah. Put him in a bubble.
Let me ask one fantasy question about AJ Puk. So we're going to talk Dynasty later, and I'm in leagues, you're in leagues, Dynasty-wise. Now, there's always the teams that go for it now, and there's the teams rebuilding. To me, going after Puk right now when, the owner might be depressed or maybe wait another day or two and they actually cut that elbow, I think you might be able to get him a little cheaper. Do you have any desire to pick up a Puk? Or are you worried that you said it, and I agree that a lot of these guys come back better or at least the same as they were before. He's only 22, so I think he's worth a gamble.
Oh, absolutely, especially guys with this much upside. And that's why I love playing in dynasty-like leagues, especially deeper ones where a lot of times these guys, they want the next up-and-coming thing, and Puk is definitely one of those. Like you said, maybe a little bummed out that Puk's be missing the next 12 to 18 months, however long it may be. But this creates a great buy opportunity. Guys like AJ Puk, or even guys coming off bad seasons, kind of guy like Austin Meadows, for instance. A guy that this got good fantasy upside, but coming off a bad season. These are guys you can get. That's how you build. That's a key part of building. A very long-standing, successful dynasty team. There's building a good one top to bottom, and that includes getting guys like this that. Might be down in other people's books due to injuries or poor performance or whatever. But especially just look at the pure upside, which is what I try to do. I look at the skill set, look at the upside, and it's all there for Puk. Like it's going to be a little delayed now, like we said, but he's definitely a guy that I'm going to be looking to whatever. I can look at all my leagues here, but guy that if I don't have him, I'm definitely. I've been trying to get him in everything I can, but definitely a guy now that if the price has dropped. Great. That's even better.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Last injury we'll talk about before some more roster moves. Greg Bird of the Yankees is going to have surgery on his ankle. He's got like a bone spur. He's going to be out a couple months, it looks like. I believe it was 6 to 8 weeks there. There's a lot of different scenarios that have been put in place. Walker going to first, bring up Gleyber Torres, bring up Miguel Andujar, who's going to be playing first in the minors. He can play first. Tons of scenarios here. Any desire when Bird comes back to put Bird on your roster? B, what's this do for the Walkers, Andujars, Torres for you?
Yeah, no, Bird is a guy that I've gone back and forth on him so many times. He is a guy that whenever he does come back, probably looking late May, maybe early June. He's a guy that, depending on how the playing time situation looks like it's going to be, I will give him another chance here just because of one thing. He's got that left-handed power at Yankee Stadium. He's a guy that he's never got hit for a high average. He swings him, he strikes out too much. Doesn't make enough overall contact, but he's got the home run swing. He gets good loft. He drives the ball well, and like I could go out there and probably hit 30 home runs at Yankee Stadium if I was a lefty batter. That's how so in a guy with his power. I was penciling him in if he got 500 at bats this season, which obviously he's not now, but he was a guy that I was almost penciling in to have a chance to get 40 home runs this year. He's got that power, so as long as he looks like he's going to be coming back into some at least mostly regular bats for at least 4 or 5 starts a week, he's a guy I will definitely give a chance to if he's out there. But outside of that, I like Miguel Andujar. I really like Andujar. He's my guy. I started off a little lukewarm on him, but more I've seen him play. I've seen him play a little bit when Trenton, Yankees AA affiliate, came here to play the Portland Sea Dogs, Boston's AA affiliate. So I've seen him a couple times. Very violent but controlled swing. So he's the type of guy that he's probably never going to walk a lot. He'll put the ball in play a lot, kind of like a Adam Jones type of guy. He'll still hit for a good average, pop out 30 home runs a year. So that's intriguing. If he can learn first base, at least get a little adequate defense there. Definitely a guy in all formats that can come up and give you a good punch. He'd probably hit 6 or so in that lineup, which is a dynamite lineup, Murderers Row 2.0 there. Outside of him, Neil Walker, this guy I've really liked. I've had a sentimental value for Neil Walker over the years. He did some good for me back in the day, but he's not a guy I put too much stock in. He can't stay healthy himself, so I'm not putting too much stock in him playing a lot. I think this kind of locks in Brendan Drury for every day at bats. Whether if they move Neil Walker over to first, Drury can play second and third. And then you get Torres, who I'm not as high on him as most, and that's not my Red Sox fandom coming out in me. I think I don't put him in the better real life and fantasy category, but he doesn't have that one elite tool in my mind that some of these other shortstops like Brendan Rodgers or Fernando Tatis Jr., guys like that have. He'll probably be a high 200s hitter, 20 to 25 home runs, 15 or so steals, but which is very good. It'll be a top 10 fantasy shortstop, but I think people are, he's a Yankees shortstop prospect. Everyone's gonna get excited about anybody that has that position that has legit upside like he does. But this year he's still very young. I don't expect much from him this year, so I wouldn't be, dynasty, sure, keeper league, sure, but for 2018 redraft leagues, I'm pumping the brakes a little bit on Gleyber Torres.
Okay. Let's talk about some kind of spring battles that were kind of been decided now. Go to St. Louis. Gregerson's going to be starting the year on the DL. Looks like it's going to be the Dominic Leone show. Maybe some Tyler Lyons, but it looks like Leone, and I've been on that Leone bandwagon all summer long, or winter long. But one caveat first, you can talk about Leone and Lyons and how you feel there, but I'm not sure if you saw it. You probably have. They decided to keep Jordan Hicks on the roster. He from single A, throws 100 miles an hour, going to be in the bullpen with them this year. So he could be a big-time dark horse or just a middle. I think he's more of a dark horse, but I think it's the Leone show. What's your thoughts on the St. Louis closing situation?
Yeah, I like Leone too. I thought he was kind of. I think he went over on that Randall Grichuk trade, didn't he, from Toronto? Yes. Right. Yeah, he was a guy that he wasn't really almost an afterthought, but he's got some good stuff. He's kind of bounced around a little bit. I think it's already his third or fourth team in his career in like 5 seasons, but he's got good stuff. I like him a lot more than Leone. Lyons, excuse me. I like definitely like Dominic Leone to lead this kind of group. But then when Gregerson comes back, it's going to muddy it even more. Who knows how? I think it's all going to be up to Leone. If he starts off the year and he's nailing down saves, pitching well, striking out batters, I think he's a guy that could hold on to this role. But if he's showing that he's kind of up and down, inconsistent, then I hate, you get that dreaded closer by committee role that nobody loves.
Yeah.
And then so yeah, I'm going after Leon. I've been a lot of people on Twitter and whatnot have been asking me about Leon. He's a guy I'm definitely recommending to start the season, but kind of like what you mentioned out with the your Giants situation there. It's not one that I have a whole lot of confidence in, just because of all the bodies they have there, and none of which have really extensive closing experience.
Yeah, there's a ton of moving parts there, like you said, and I like Leon. I'm glad he's getting the start. I'm going to ride with him, but by no means do I feel comfortable with it because A, Mike Matheny, yeah, and B, I'm just
Say no more.
places where I can say it, but you never know what he can do there, and it could be a roulette, and he still might get a handful of saves. We might split time, and that's just a pain in the rear end. So let's go to the White Sox. They're kind of doing a committee thing. They came out saying Nate Jones is the guy, and then a couple hours later, another thing came out and said, oh, he's going to kind of split the role with Joakim Soria. And I thought Joakim Soria would be the guy because they paid him money, go show him off a bit, trade him. That's kind of what I thought. Mm-hmm. What are you doing with this role at all?
Oh God, I don't like this at all. Yeah, I thought I was right there with you. I thought this was Soria's job to lose, always start the season, and he's shown that there's no guarantee. He's had ERAs above or near 4 for the last 2 seasons, so he can be very widely inconsistent. But he's got the closer stuff. He throws hard still. He's got the experience from his days with in Kansas City. Earlier in his career, and even a little bit, with Detroit a couple of years back. But Nate Jones is not a guy that I trust at all. I was looking at his numbers. He's been a decent setup man for his career. I'm not saying I don't like Nate Jones as a pitcher, but he's only got 3 career saves, and he can't stay on the field. He's only thrown, over the last 4 years combined, 101 third innings pitched, and I think a little over 70 of those were in one season. Yeah. He can't stay on the field himself, so I think eventually Soria does. Call it a gut feeling, but I think Soria ends up running away with this job, so to speak. Like you said, the White Sox aren't going anywhere this year. Bright future, stacked farm system, but they're not going anywhere in 2018. I mean, themselves, they got James Shields starting on opening day. Exactly. Very good pitcher in his career, but not now. But so Soria is a guy that they don't really need. That's how I've always said the least valuable guy for a bad team to have is a good, decent closer. Is what do you need him for? So he's definitely a guy I think is pedal off at the deadline. So May, June, July, I think he'll start getting definitely start leading this duo here and distancing himself from Nate Jones to set and be traded to a contender for most likely a setup role, but nothing that. I don't like it for fantasy purposes, obviously. If I was to pick one, I'd still stick with Soria, even with the news of Jones kind of splitting the time with him when we start. But Soria is better suited for the role, I think. So if I needed, I'm not comfortable with either. It's kind of a theme here lately. I'm not comfortable with anything here, but I'll definitely look to Soria before I look at Nate Jones.
That just sums up the closing role in fantasy. It's like I was telling someone earlier today is I used to never be a guy that would take a closer early, and I still don't reach for them. But if they fall a little bit, I've been way more likely to at least get one guy that I trust to keep that role all year, and then I'll pencil the rest in because it's nothing like it used to be.
Oh, exactly. I was finishing up my my Dynasty rankings there, and I did some positional before I did my top 300 overall, and I was working on the closer rankings, and I'm like, God, it's like you got your elite guys, you got your Jansons, Kimbrels, Chapmans, Niebels, and guys like that. Even Niebels hasn't done it for too long, but you only have a few guys where you're like, boom, elite guy year in year out, don't worry about him at all, and then it's just a lot of turnover. Even guys like Britton was arguably the most valuable pitcher in baseball. Just was it 2016 when he had an ERA of -5. You give 2 runs the entire season or something ridiculous. Yep. But and even he's battling inconsistency and injuries. He's not going to be back till near August at this point. So much turnover. But I am like you. I've been kind of reaching to that 6 to 15 range. The guys after the elite guys, maybe getting one or two of those guys like Hector Neris, Jerry's Familia, Brad Hand's a guy I like, guys like that. But yeah, that's just a closing scene in general, like you said.
Yep. One more closing situation that dropped today. Tori Lavello finally let us know what I've been preaching all along, but I know some disagree. Brad Boxberger is going to start the year as a closer. Hirano will not be closing, and neither will Archie Bradley. And I'm a fan of this. I think Archie Bradley is their best pitcher. Use him in 2 to 3 inning roles, high leverage situations. He still might get you 10 saves, but let him pitch when you need him the most. And then Boxberger could be your closer. What's your thoughts on the D-back situation?
I got mixed feelings because I do like Boxberger and I really like Archie Bradley. And I have a good amount of shares on both guys this year. Probably have them in at least a couple of leagues each. Part of me kind of wanted Bradley to get the role just to see what he could do. He's been he faltered out as a starter. Really was really good in middle relief setup and kind of that kind of jack of all trades role last year. Kind of come in whenever you need him to. I kind of want to see what he could do as a full-time closer, see if he could have that Corey Nebel type breakout where he goes out and saves 40 plus with, insane ratios and, 10 plus Ks per 9. But Boxberger is a guy, he has the experience, kind of battled injuries over the last couple of years, but he was a guy earlier in his career when he was with Tampa Bay. He was a guy that kind of fell in that range of guys that I would target a lot. And he even had, didn't he have 41 saves 2015 and hasn't really done much outside of that, but he's the type of guy that I would always target. He's got good stuff. He's definitely made for the closer's role, but like you said, Bradley could still sneak in 10, 15, maybe even 20 saves. Look over Boxberger's stats right now, and he hasn't even eclipsed 30 innings pitched each of the last 2 years, so he's no guarantee. Exactly. Yep. He's another guy that's no guarantee to make it through the season here. So Bradley's still a guy that I would kind of target. I like going after guys like him and Chris Davinsky in Houston, Dylan Betances, guys that are just stud middle relievers that if they happen to get into that closer's job, could be top 10 options, and so they help you out now, can give you save here and there. So I like the situation, and like I said, I was hoping Bradley can get it just to see what he can do. But still, I think it's a good situation what Arizona has going on right now, because if Boxberger comes out, gets injured, stinks up the place, whatever, they have some guys from Bradley and Hirano that can step in and likely fill the role very well. So it's a good situation, I think.
Yeah, definitely good fallback options. One reason I like it is I think Bradley might be more valuable in multi-inning roles. Like a Davinsky, get you 100 innings, all the strikeouts, and then still sneak in some saves. Yep. Also, I don't think the Diamondbacks want him to close because then he'll make more money in arbitration next year. That's the scary scenario that I think is there. The business aspect.
Yeah.
One more player I wanted to ask you about real quick. Scott Kingery. If people have been sleeping under a rock, he was accepted to stay in the bigs, got a big extension, so he'll be around. Really nowhere to play just yet. I think eventually he might take Franco's spot, but who knows? What's your take on Kingery for the season?
Love him. Got to see him a few times in AA last year. I love his skill set. People have been asking me, ever since the news broke, even before the news broke, should I be adding Kingery? Yes. No matter what league you play in, go out and get.
I was drafting him all year.
Exactly. He shouldn't be on your waiver wire. I mean, not everybody plays in super competitive leagues like you and I here, but if Kingery is available, if you listen to this, Kingery's on your waiver wire, go out and grab him. I don't care what your settings are, roto, head-to-head, points, AL, whatever. I don't care what your settings are. Go out and get yourself Scott Kingery. This guy is, has legit. If he can get full-time role here, whether it be taking over for Cesar Hernandez, Michael Franco, wherever it may be. I know he can. They've dabbled with him in the outfield too, but he's a legit 2020 threat right off the bat. Don't take his AA numbers with a grain of salt. Redding that ballpark is a very hitter-friendly park. He had 18 home runs there in half a season. He's not that type of home run hitter. But once he settles in, as a regular, he could be one of those 20 home run, 30 steal type of guys that keeps a good average. So this isn't one of the news I was hoping that he would stay up. So hearing this news, I'm ecstatic. I've been investing in him heavily this year, whether it's keeper or redraft or dynasty, whatever it may be. So I was ecstatic to hear him stay up, and it's a good move. The service time. We all like to forget that baseball is a business. Yes, it is a game, but for Major League Baseball, it's a business, and you hate those dreaded words, service time. I was young at the TV every day, until Chris Bryant came up a few years back, and and then we'll go through that with Acuna this year, at least for the first couple of weeks. I get it from the business side, hate it from the fantasy side, but it's nice that the Phillies see what they have in Kingery, locked him up early, bought out his arbitration years, kind of like the Rays did with Evan Longoria about a decade ago. Good move for them, and great move for us owners here. Like I said, it doesn't have a spot right now, so be patient. Would be my kind of words of advice here. But I'm a big believer in that talent always wins out in the end, and Kingery is a guy that Cesar Hernandez is not going to hold him back for long at second base. Franco, he's better than Hernandez, but if it comes to it, he's not going to hold back Kingery for long either, especially if Kingery starts hitting hot here. So definitely, I love that news so much.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I was pumped when I heard that because I was kind of thinking, okay, I'll pick him, I'll hold him for a month or two, and then he'll finally get his call. Makes it a lot easier now. Let's talk about those dynasty rankings I've been mentioning. We won't go super deep into this, kind of just get a preface, and then people can go check it out on FanTrax HQ. I know you were doing your rankings all off season long for all the positions. You mentioned you just finished up the reliever rankings, and now you got your top 300 dynasty rankings. How often do you update your rankings, especially your dynasty ones?
All the time.
Yeah.
Even before I started, writing, for FanTrax and whatnot, just over the years, I've always been loved making rankings lists, and I update them very frequently. If some guy gets injured, gets a hot streak, cold streak, call ups, demotions, so on and so forth, I update them pretty frequently. So anybody listening, you want an update in mid-May, I got you covered. I'll have it updated. I can send you a spreadsheet. In terms of actually, posting some updates here, I do them, usually preseason. Like I just finished them up, and then I'll do my mid-season update. Usually, I do that right around the All-Star break. I won't be as in-depth. I'll probably just post a general top 300 list and maybe break it down a little bit, but I won't be doing a few paragraphs in each player like I was over the last month or two. But usually twice a season I do those, and there's fun. Dynasty is it's a animal. You gotta stay on top of it. It's
definitely
it's a year-round thing. That's why I prefer dynasty and keepers as opposed to redrafts. It's always something to do. It's always values changing, always guys to trade for, trade away. So definitely something to keep on top of, and I try to do that too.
Yeah, you mentioned Ronaldo Cunha already, and he's kind of the talk of the talk these days. You have him at 34, and some have him higher, some have him. I think it's fair because people forget it. Just because it's dynasty doesn't mean it's all prospects. There's a lot of very good ball players in front of him. How high has he risen for you the last let's say year?
Oh, a ton. I was high on him before he broke out. I always thought he'd be a pretty darn good ball player, but I'd be lying to you if I think anybody would be lying to you if they said that they saw 2017 coming and the way he played. I love this guy. I love this kid so freaking much. I've been trying to get him everywhere. He's got there's really no weaknesses in this game. He got better at every level. You look at his batting average, his home runs per bat, his OPS, everything went up from high A, double A, triple A. Arizona Fall League, he mashed. Spring training, he mashed. You got to go back a couple years to find the last time he wasn't mashing. He's even I don't know if you saw that. I'm not sure how many people saw this, but I saw on MLB.com a longtime scout, kind of compared him, not necessarily statistically, but as an overall talent to Hank Aaron.
I saw that. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's pretty crazy.
I don't think Acuna's going to go out there and hit 755 career home runs, but just a guy that if everything clicks and he continues to develop, he's got that Hall of Fame type skill set. He's a great outfielder. He's got speed, power, average. He makes a high contact. He's a guy that you got to really dig deep to find anything you don't like about the kid. He seems like he's just a good overall, just good guy in general too. There's nothing you could, excuse me. There's nothing really to not like about him at all. So, 34 might be aggressive. I don't
think so.
Yeah, I've gotten some kickback a little bit, but I like it. I was holding myself back from ranking him even higher.
That's what I was wondering. So I wanted to ask you. Like I said, I've seen some people go, yeah, he's the guy. We're coming all the way to the top. So
God, I mean, when I was putting together, I had my positional list, and I was kind of like looking at those and kind of looking at all the positions together to see a guy who would like more overall. And he started creeping into the back of my mind, honestly, in the teens. I was in like the the Cody Bellinger, Freddie Freeman area, and I'm like, God, do I want to put Acuna this high? The answer is yes, I want to, but I'm like, all right, he hasn't even taken a major league at bat yet, and outside of spring training, so it's gonna pump the brakes a little bit. 34 is still pretty high, but he earns it. He definitely is a guy that earns everything that he's got coming to him. Okay, I'm doing my draft right now. Carlos Correa just fell to me in second round. That's awesome.
Oh
wow. But yeah, no, Acuna, I've been raving about him. I've got him and his teammate Ozzie Albies too.
That's a good segue. Let me just go there real quick because that's where I was going next with this. And I won't keep you too much longer. But this one kind of stood out to me. At 41, you have a guy I have on a ton of my fantasy teams, 21-year-old Rafael Devers. I think the world of him. I had Ralph Lifshitz on months ago, and he said watching him play in Puckett, just his hit tool alone, the sound of the bat, everything. He compared him to Mike Trout, which I thought was insane, but I could see it. Mm-hmm. You have Ozzie Albies at 42, so basically neck and neck with these two young studs, 21 years old. What's your take on these two guys? Where do you see these guys going from here?
God, yeah, I didn't hear Ralph compare Devers to Trout, but outside of the speed, obviously, he's pretty spot on. Great hit. I didn't see him in Pawtucket, but I got to see him Double-A in Portland. He wasn't here too long, but I made sure to go and see him as much as I could. So I'm only about half an hour from the ballpark, and he's got that legit, plus hit tool, plus power. Like I said, the ball, it makes a different sound coming off his bat than most Evers I've seen come through this Red Sox system. He's got that legit 300 average, 40 home run upside. I love Devers. I've been getting him everywhere. Yes, my Red Sox fandom goes into that a little bit, but him and Albies, there's a lot to like about Albies too. A lot to like about Albies. He is a lot of people, some of my followers, even it was one day about a week and a half ago. Albies had a 2-home run day, one from each side of the plate, and there's at least 3 of my followers reached out to me like, "Hey, did you see Ozzie Albies hit 2 home runs today?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I did." It's funny that people know how much I love Albies. It's very, very evident. But if someone's looking for the next Trey Turner type breakout, the guy that can go hit 20 and 40, 20 home runs, 40 steals this year, Albies is my pick. He's
high praise.
It is. I'm not necessarily going to write it down right here in a permanent marker that he's going to do that, but he's got that. He's 20 25 home runs might be his cap for power. He's got that slight frame. He's only like 5'9", $180 soaking wet. But he's got a good solid swing, quick through the zone. He's kind of made his whole motion a little more compact and quicker through the zone over the last year and a half. So he's been able to add a little bit of power. He was a guy that, earlier in his minor league career was slated to kind of be a single-digit home run guy, but now with the adjustments he's made, he's definitely at least a 15, 20, maybe even, creep up near 25 home runs a year. He's got elite speed, very smart player too, which I love to see. You look at his stolen base numbers. I think combined through the minor leagues and the major leagues, he had 29 steals, but only got caught 3 times. And over his minor league career, I think he had like an 85-ish% conversion rate on the bases. So he's a very smart player. So guy that I've been reaching earlier and earlier to get him in drafts. I was just like that Dynasty startup with Keith Farnsworth I mentioned. That was an auction, and I forget who it was with, but I got into a bidding war for Ozzie Albies, and I was not going to be outbid that night. I ended up going, I think, up in the mid-30s for his price, but he's that type of a talent, and he's pretty. I think, a very safe. Both him and Devers. I think, in addition to the very high upside and then the high ceiling that they possess, fairly safe floor as well. So they can still be very good players, even if they don't live up to the high potential that myself and others have put on them.
No, I love it. I'm a big Albies guy. I'm with you on that one. And Devers as well. Like I said, I have a ton of my teams this year. So
yeah,
I'm all about it. But everybody check out the rankings, Top 300 Dynasty, and his other work over on FanTrax HQ and Fantasy Pros. Eric, any final words before you get back to your draft and baseball season starting on Thursday?
Oh God, I'm so pumped. It's been a long off season, especially with how stagnant it was for a while there. I took the day off. I get the day off this Thursday and next Thursday for the season opener and home opener. Wish I was going, but I'll just be watching on TV. But God, it's just good to get back into the baseball season here. I got a lot of snow on the ground up here in Maine, so kicking around the 30 to 40 degree range. So it's good to get back in the swing of things here. So I'm excited.
I love it. So yeah, again, everybody check him out. FanTrax or Fantasy Pros. He's on Twitter at EricCross04. Eric, thanks for joining me, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, and take care.
You too. Everybody, this is Bench with Bubba, episode 82. Catch you guys next time.